Welcome back to another edition of the Prepper Recon Podcast. Our mission is to bring you great interviews with preppers from around the world so you can be better informed and better prepared for everything from a hurricane to the end of the world as we know it. I've been purchasing gold and silver from JM Bullion since before they were a show sponsor because they have the lowest price of any dealer I know of. JM Bullion now offers free shipping on all orders. Check them out online today at jmbullion.com. I put together a compact individual first aid kit, or IFAK, that's perfect for gunshot wounds, car accidents, and other traumatic injuries. It's a MOLLE-compatible pouch in Coyote, ACU, or Black. It's equipped with an Israeli battle dressing, quick clot, an Asherman chest seal, nasopharyngeal airway, a TK4 tourniquet, 3 pre-threaded nylon sutures, EMT shears, betadine swabs, steri strips, and lots of extras. It's perfect for your glove box, bug out bag, or home first aid kit. Go to the PrepperRecon.com homepage and click on the IFAK store tab at the top of the page. $99 includes shipping, and this kit could save your life. Today's guest is Bernie Carr from the Apartment Prepper. Bernie, what have you been up to since the last time you were on the show?
Since last time we spoke, I've been just working, also maintaining Apartment Prepper blog, and then I also finished my second book, which is Jake and Miller's Big Adventure. And so I've been going back and forth with the publisher and the illustrator on that until finally it was completed. And now it's going to be almost ready to come out in a week or so.
That's cool. Now, Jake and Miller's Big Adventure sounds like a good book to introduce kids to prepping. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
It's really geared for smaller children. We put age 4 and up. Because we just wanted to get, I just wanted to write about it, how kids can be prepared and get the preparedness mindset. So it's really a story about Jake and his dog Miller, and Jake wants to go on a big adventure, go exploring, as little kids like to do. But Miller has some misgivings about being out and about. He says he doesn't want to be hungry and he doesn't want to be thirsty. So he's a little worried about his comforts. So Jake shows him that whatever we do, you don't need to be those things. You don't need to be afraid as long as you're prepared. And so that they go about their adventures and they get to use their supplies and they go their merry way. So it kind of shows kids how it's fun to be to enjoy the great outdoors, but it's also great to be prepared so you don't have to be scared.
Now, do you think that prepping could potentially be a source of fear for young children, or do you think that being prepared will actually make them feel more secure when a natural or man-made disaster occurs?
I think that if you go about it the right way, it would actually make them feel more secure. Because, just even from our experience in our own families, when there's a power outage, of course, everything's going to be dark and kids do not like to be in the dark. But if you show them that, we'll take care of it. There's nothing to be scared about. We've got flashlights, we've got candles, we've got snacks, we've got board games. Then that takes away some of the fear of natural or man-made disasters, so they don't need to worry that, something's going to happen to them that they don't have any control over. I think being prepared shows them, yeah, you do have a little bit of control over what happens to you, as long as you think ahead and you've prepared in advance. So, there could be things that scare them, but I think being prepared would mitigate some of that fear.
And some parents do pretty much everything for their kids. They tie their shoes and, get them a cup of water when they're thirsty. And I often think that they're just too tired from work and life in general to really teach their kids to do things for themselves. But just a few minutes of instruction can actually take some of the burden off of the parent and empower the child to be more self-sufficient. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I believe in just taking a little bit of time, more time to just show them what to do rather than doing everything for them, because doing everything for them just makes them more dependent upon you, A. And B, if you show them what to do, then they'll learn for when they need something, they can, feel empowered that they can take care of certain things on their own. I mean, I'm not going to show a little kid anything complicated, but, a little age appropriate things like tying their shoes when they're ready. I sure believe in getting them trained and getting them, to learn how to do things on their own so that, they're not completely dependent and, helpless when, they do need something.
Now, what do you think about taking kids camping? Is that a good way for them to learn new skills and familiarize themselves with being a little bit more self-sufficient?
I really do. I believe that it is a good idea to take them camping because, just in our family alone, there's a natural interest of, for kids to want to be outdoors anyway. When they were very young, we were doing fireworks here in Texas. And, we bought fireworks and we were trying to get them, to do the sparklers and everything. But we noticed that instead of being into the fireworks, they were trying to gather up twigs and, try to light them up with sparklers. So that told us that they were more interested in making a campfire or something. So the following summer we said, oh, we're going camping. So then, when we did go, they were really interested, in doing things outside and gathering wood for the fire and, cooking things over the fire and just being out and about. And I think that they learned a lot, being outdoors for, just a couple of days out of the year. They do learn a lot of new skills that, and they enjoy themselves at the same time.
Yeah, building a fire is sort of one of those primal desires that I think God's put in us because it's one of those basic skills that we need. And all through history, until the invention of the microwave and the electric stove, you've had to know how to build a fire, whether it was outside or in your fireplace or whatever. And it's something that a lot of kids, if they don't go camping, they'll never really get to acquire that skill.
Yeah, it would be kind of a shame to never be exposed to that because they're just so into it. They just love it so much, and just watching it, they're just mesmerized by it. So, even though you don't do a whole lot, sitting around the campfire, it still seems so fun for them. Some of the best moments that they remember about camping is, building the fire and then, just kind of staring off and cooking in it and, roasting marshmallows and such. So, yeah, I think it's a great experience, and we continue to do it yearly at least.
And what about gardening? Is that a project that the kids can be involved in?
Oh, definitely. From even the time that they're little, it's fascinating for them to see you plant a seed and see something sprout out of the ground, as the seed grows, and then, nurture that, into a plant and eventually harvest, something out of the garden. And of course they will be exposed to, yucky things, like worms and bugs and seeing that, the pests and things of that nature that you have to deal with and how to get rid of snails. So, all of that, it's all very fascinating for them. And at the same time that they're seeing you do all this with them, you're spending time and they're, experiencing things that with you at the same time and learning how to do it on their own later on. They're going to want to take that up, hopefully, when they're adults. So, I think gardening is wonderful.
And your blog focuses on preparedness in an apartment setting, but, even if you've just got a windowsill or a little balcony, you can grow basil and herbs and a lot of things and get the kids involved in just planting things in the soil and watch it turn into a plant. I guess it was about 4 years ago. Jamie Oliver, he's a chef, and he did what was called the Jamie Oliver's Food Revolution, and I think it was just sort of like a 1 or 2 week special. And he went to a town in West Virginia and went into the school system and was holding up a tomato and asking the kids to identify it and tell him what it was.
Right.
None of the kids, and I'm talking about a 3rd or 4th grade classroom, could identify a tomato. None of them could identify a potato, but they all knew what French fries were and they all knew what ketchup was, but they had no idea where it came from. And he went into the homes of a couple of the children and looked to see what they were eating, and he went into the lunchroom to see what they were being fed in the lunchroom. And actually, I think it was Huntington, West Virginia, and the school system was they were very reluctant to accept anything he had to say, and the lunch lady, the lady that was in charge of the school where he went, was very resistant to everything he wanted to try to teach her. But I
Right.
read a report that 2 years later, they actually had instituted most of the things that he had recommended. So sometimes
Oh,
people are resistant to change, but they will eventually accept it. But the point of that story, that big rabbit trail I just went down, was that if you don't tell kids where their food comes from, they don't know. So
I, I,
as parents, we're responsible to tell them.
I think we do need to tell kids where their food comes from, and that way they won't be bothered by it when they really do see it. One, they need to know that this is where the plants in the garden, they get exposed to seeing the fruit and the vegetables where that comes from. And B, a couple years ago, I was spending time with a friend and her family, and she decided she was going to make some a chicken dish, and I guess the kids never were invited to the kitchen before while their mom was cooking. And when she was cutting up a piece of chicken breast, one of the kids got all grossed out because she had never known that that's where the chicken nuggets come from. She's only seen chicken nuggets out of a bag and never seen a chicken actually cutting up chicken. So that seemed to be like a traumatic experience, and I was just marveling at that. I mean, how could they not know where food comes from? That it comes from an animal or a plant. But apparently that's a common thing. And, I think that's a shame. They need to know where that comes from.
Yeah, even if it never hits the fan, it'd be great if kids knew how to make a couple of simple meals, like, pasta. It's easy to
Right.
just boil a pot of water and teach them, you get a timer or you watch the clock and you read on the box, it says 11 minutes for al dente, and you throw the pasta in there and you open the sauce and pour it on the pasta. I mean, that's a pretty easy, simple meal that they could learn to do. And,
Right.
you put a little butter on the bread and you put the cheese in the middle and toast a grilled cheese and just introduce them into, what goes on in the kitchen and how a meal's prepared. And, and then like your friend,
Yeah, I
teach
think
them how to cut up and saute a chicken breast.
I do agree with that. Unfortunately, I think it does need to come from the adults because a lot of adults don't cook. They eat a lot of meals outside, so they do a lot of takeout, or they just buy prepackaged meals or order pizza. So, the only thing the child is exposed to is that, they make a call or they go to a restaurant and they get food instantly. And it doesn't work that way. So I think it needs to start with the parents. And one of the things I recommend, one of the basic things I recommend on the blog is just for people to start cooking meals from home or just learn some really basic, recipes. Like you said, it's not that hard to boil pasta and make a sauce or just even cook, a pot of rice and a pot of beans and eat that together. So, yeah, definitely I recommend for parents to start cooking more things on their own and showing the kids, how it's done.
Yeah, in general, it's going to be healthier food. And, a lot of people, I understand, they're just their workload and they got to get the kids and take them to soccer and take them to band practice and take them here and there. And after all of that, maybe they just don't have the energy to go put 30 or 40 minutes into putting together a meal and then washing the dishes and everything. So
Right.
maybe they have to eat out and, and maybe they're on the budget to where, that's not a problem for them, from a monetary standpoint. But on Sunday, on your day off or Saturday night or something, get everybody in the kitchen and make something just for fun. And you have to know how, because you're not going to be able to stockpile enough, frozen TV dinners and pot pies to sustain yourself on long term if we have any kind of a serious disaster that involves, food shortages, or even a
Right.
political disaster that involves food shortages. We're seeing that in Venezuela right now. People are getting ration cards that they're going to have to swipe because they can only go to the grocery one day a week.
Right.
Everybody will have their day that they're allotted to go, and if it's not your day, you won't be able to go. And if you're you swipe your card and it shows you've already been, then you'll be turned away. And it's very critical. And, right now our shelves are full. And of course, America is a very different type of country and a very different economy than Venezuela. But it's something that you can't say it would never happen here. Maybe the odds are very, very remote, but, if they're a fraction of a percent, it costs you $20 to buy, a 20-pound bag of rice and, 10 pounds of, dried beans and throw them in a Mylar bag and seal that up and put it in a bucket.
Right. It's so simple to just get that and save it for an emergency. And that's something you can count on for hopefully nothing like that will ever happen, but if something does and you have that set aside, you'll be better off than so many other people that don't prepare.
And there's lots of other things that you can have besides a complete economic or complete political collapse. Every year there's somebody that gets, I guess just now some folks lost their homes in a tornado, and I'm sure, and then there's some flooding going on the East Coast, and I think a lot of people they shut the electricity off. So when there's no electricity, you can't go to the store and buy anything because they all run on electronic cash registers. Even if you already have your cash out of the bank, which most people don't, they're doing everything living day to day on the credit card, or or even if they have the cash in the bank, they're just still swiping the debit card and not actually having cash on hand. But most groceries, some of the little mom and pop places, you could still buy something in a power outage, but most of the time you can't even get anything from a large chain grocer.
Right. I was actually on one occasion I went to a grocery store, and this was the very first time this happened, that they had a power outage just on a local level. And they said, unless you have cash, we can't run your transaction. So, they sent everybody away except for the people that had cash with them. Cause they said they could do that manually. So, I recommend having some cash set aside too, in case that ever happens. Cause I've seen it happen where nothing else gets accepted except for cash.
And then while we're on the subject, there's been a lot of earthquake activity over the last few weeks. California had a 5.1. And Chile had an 8.2, and there's been several aftershocks.
That was scary.
Yeah. And that's, that's all in that big ring of fire there. That's, when you start getting a lot of activity going on, I guess it means the plates are moving, and
it
there's
does
a
seem
possibility
like that.
for more activity.
Yeah, it does seem like the ring of fire is getting active again. I do have some family in, Southern California, so I immediately, called them as soon as I heard the news. And of course that was a good shaker is what I was told. And everybody was scared for a while because they kept getting aftershocks, after the main one. So, and then the one from Chile happened right after. So I think, there's been a lot of seismic activity. It's kind of scary.
And that knocks down buildings, and it topples trees, and it topples power lines, and disrupts reducing stations and power plants. And you get a good shake in just the right place for just the right length of time, and it can really take down the power grid of a small area for weeks at a time.
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah, it could happen. So I immediately wrote about just doing some quick assessment of supplies and just to prepare for an earthquake if you live in an earthquake prone area.
So what was some of your specific advice that you had for folks that may be living in the ring of fire or some other earthquake prone areas?
Well, first thing I said was you need to assess what it is you have in your own home right now as far as emergency supplies, because a lot of times you get the 3-day food and water recommendation, which is not nearly enough to last if the damage is greater than originally thought. And it's not going to be just the 3 days of not having water and food. So stock up on water and food for at least 1 week, and then if you have that, go to 2 weeks and maybe a month or more, hopefully. Two, I also recommend that people learn how to shut off their gas, in their homes, have the tools to do that. Three, have a plan on what you do. You want to always have, shoes next to your bed, and check around your house on what things can fall off if you're either asleep or watching TV. Cause I think one of the victims was, TV fell on him is what I had heard on the news. So you just never know. If you live in an earthquake prone area, you need to do that ahead of time. You can't be securing furniture and, picture frames while the earthquake is happening. Those are things that you have to do ahead of time so that when it does happen, nothing will fall on you or your family. Another thing I recommended was just have a plan on how you're gonna, the minute you start hearing the shaking and you feel it, what are you and your kids gonna do? Are you, can you hide under a sturdy table or desk, or you need to get outside or something? At least have a plan according to where you are so that if it does happen, because there's never any warning, people will know what to do. And of course, I also recommend people have a get home plan if it happens while they're at work and the kids are at school, that they have a plan ahead of, they know who's going to pick up whom and how they're going to get in touch with each other. If an earthquake happens in the middle of the day, which, it could. So those are just some of the things I said to at least get started.
And then several years ago, when California got hit, it collapsed the freeway, and it actually crushed a lot of people, but then a lot of other people were just stranded. So probably also it'd be good. You talked about keeping some shoes by your bed. Probably be a good idea to keep a pair of walking shoes in your car because it doesn't take an earthquake. You can have just a car breakdown or anything to where you are walking suddenly. And if you work in dress shoes, you work in high heels, you're not going to get too far on those.
That's good advice right there, because a lot of people, if you work downtown, you also want to have an emergency kit in your workplace as well as your car, and that includes comfortable shoes in case you have to get walking. You don't want to be wearing those nice leather shoes or high heels. It's not going to help you in an emergency. So that's another thing, is to keep emergency supplies, in your location, work, home, as well as your car.
Now, do you think BB guns are a good tool to teach firearm safety to kids?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to get them started. To learn about firearms. Both my brothers had BB guns growing up, so I always was used to seeing them around. So yes, I do think BB guns are a good tool to get kids to learn about firearms safety.
And you can sort of teach them the basic rules of not pointing it at anybody and not pointing it at themselves, and keeping the barrel facing up or towards the ground, and always keeping their finger off the trigger, and always treating it like it's loaded, and you can instill all those good habits in them as a child, and then when they're ready to move up to maybe the pellet gun next, where if there is an accident, obviously a pellet gun's going to be more detrimental than a BB gun, but still less detrimental than maybe if the next step is a .22, and then on from there as they reach adulthood.
I think definitely BB guns are a good tool to get them started. Also, another thing I thought would be good is paintball. I think paintball is also a good way to get them to learn about firearm safety, because all the same kind of principles apply. I mean, not going to hurt. It'll sting. But it won't hurt them as much but still get to learn how you don't point that, and you always keep track of where the gun is pointed and all that kind of good stuff. So I think paintball is another good way to learn it.
And paintball probably also teaches you to act under stress, because you know that the potential for pain. If you stick your head out too far, you've got that potential for pain, and it creates just enough stress for you to have to train your mind to think in those type of situations. So if they ever do have to use the weapon in a defensive manner.
Right, and it also shows them, that when you're moving around, it's not always going to go where you want it to go, where you want to shoot. So you need to learn how to shoot at targets as you're moving or running or crouching and also hiding. And so it's a good family activity that you could all do together. Moms, dads, and kids something outdoors that you could do with them and learn at the same time.
That's a really good idea. Now, what are some other ways we can get the kids involved in preparedness?
I think getting them involved as you're doing your own preparedness is good. One, they can help choose items for their own personal emergency kit. Because each child should have like a little backpack or a little go bag. They can help choose snacks, books, their favorite toy or whatever it is they want to bring with them. They also can help, as you're packing bulk foods, like we mentioned, packing away rice and beans and sugar and things like that into Mylar bags. Little kids, you can show them, wash your hands and keep everything dry and, help you scoop the bulk food items into the Mylar bag and putting in a little oxygen absorber. I think that's a simple enough activity as long as they stay away from the iron or however you seal the bags. That's an activity you could do with them, the simple stuff. Another thing is it's also a good idea to learn first aid, if they're a bit older, or at least know where the first aid kit is and what to do if you get a cut. You gotta get that Bactine and the Band-Aids and things like that. So if they're exposed to that when they're little, they'll kind of know what to do if something happens and you're not around. So I think those are, a few activities that you could do with them.
And,
fire drills,
oh yeah, that's good.
That's another thing. Like fire drills, that way, they know what to do in case of a fire. And so it's not really, so they'll associate prepping with, everyday simple things, practical things. So prepping is not like an alien thing for them. It's something that you just do on a regular basis, just as you prepare for a fire, you prepare for other emergencies, that, can happen. So they're exposed to it on a regular basis. It doesn't seem so, odd to them, and it's not the first time they're going to hear about it because they've already prepared. So they, as you do fire drills, it's, you prepare for other disasters as well.
Apartment Prepper linked to a recent article on lightening your bug-out bag. I just put mine on a diet. I've taken it from 45 pounds down to 27 pounds. I cut a few of the creature comforts and focused on the things I absolutely need. You got any good tips from that article that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think so. Well, we're having to do that as well because the last time we did a hike ourselves, we were going with carrying a third of your body weight, which is really way too much. So we found that the bags were way too heavy, and you can't go a lot of distance with a super heavy bag. Anyway, one of the tips though is make room for water. I think you need more water than you originally think. So I would get rid of some of the items in favor of carrying more water. Because for food bars, you can go with food bars instead of other kind of heavier foods, but you never know when you're gonna get into a situation where you need water and you're not finding it in the sources around you. So I think carry more water than what you think you need.
That's a really, really good tip. Now we're
the thing is the clothes that you have on, you just need really one set of clothes and maybe a change of underwear. Instead of, we overpacked on the clothes. And you probably need a few pairs of socks in addition to that, but because we overpacked in the clothes, so we've had to cut down on the items that, because we were carrying maybe 3 or 4 changes to clothing, and that was way too much.
Very good tip. And we're going to have links to purchase Jake and Miller's Big Adventure in today's show notes. And can you tell the listeners the title of your other book?
The first book was called Prepper's Pocket Guide, and this one is Jake and Miller's Big Adventure, our Prepper's book for kids.
And the Prepper's Pocket Guide, that's got a lot of good tips, low cost, budget tips in there as well, right?
Definitely. That's geared toward the beginning prepper. There's a lot of tips in there for getting started, as well as preparing on a budget if you don't have a lot of money and you don't have a lot of space. The Prepper's Pocket Guide is for you and to get started on preparing.
And then you want to tell the folks where they can find your website one more time?
It's www.apartmentprepper.com.
Bernie, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I enjoyed speaking with you, Mark.
Oh, absolutely. It's always a pleasure. Hey, Preppers and Patriots. American Meltdown, the long-awaited sequel to American Exit Strategy, is now available in Kindle and paperback. In American Meltdown, Book 2 of the Economic Collapse Chronicles, the new president, Anthony Howe, signs an executive order banning all semi-automatic weapons. Matt, Adam, and Wesley Baer begin training with their local militia for the battle that is coming. Within weeks of the inauguration, the $700 trillion derivatives bubble pops when rates on U.S. debt skyrocket. The derivatives crisis is the final nail in the coffin of the banking system and the death of the fiat currency system in America. With the dollar gone, commerce comes to a screeching halt. While times prove to be tough for all, survival favors the prepared. Get your Kindle or paperback copy of American Meltdown, Book 2 of the Economic Collapse Chronicles on Amazon today.